The San Francisco Giants needed that in the worst way. They salvage a win against the Washington Nationals. The offense breaks through. Jordan Hicks has another stellar performance. And hey, now the Giants finally have a stolen base or three.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily San Francisco Giants podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Giants, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. My name is Ben Kaspick, and on the show we provide daily episodes Monday through Friday talking about the San Francisco Giants in a way that's data-driven and rational, but also simple, passionate, and accessible to all. I'm a former contributor for the baseball statistics and analysis websites Beyond the Box Score and Rotographs. I've been podcasting about the Giants since 2015, been hosting this show for over 5 years, and I'm a lifelong Giants fan. Thank you for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day, even if it is 4:15 in the afternoon right now. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube. And right now we're live on YouTube. Thank you to those of you tuning in right now. But if you're not live, that's fine. That's fine as well. And we are a daily show. And coming up on today's show, yes, we're going to get into the Giants salvaging a win against the Nationals, a team that they have not been able to figure out since 2021. And so 2022, 2023, we discussed this on yesterday's show. The Nationals are just a different team when they're facing the Giants versus when they're facing everybody else. But today, the Nationals were the Nationals. The Giants kind of put them in their place. And we'll also get into the frustration of last night's loss, which we haven't discussed yet because this is the first episode of the day today. Bases loaded, nobody out, ninth inning, and down 2 runs and not able to get anything across with your, some of your middle of the order hitters coming up. So we'll get into that as well. But this was a breakthrough game for the offense. No, they didn't hit a home run, and they only had 2 extra base hits and 10 singles. So in a way, I want to pump the brakes and be like, you can't rely on winning games this way, where you can't rely on having 12 hits in a game. You're going to have to hit the ball out of the ballpark. They need guys like Matt Chapman, Jorge Soler, Michael Conforto, and just others like Slater, guys like that, Yastrzemski, to just kind of hit some homers. But nonetheless, in this game, I think most importantly, they got some hits with guys on base, and particularly quote unquote runners in scoring position. For the everydayers out there, I don't often talk about runners in scoring position because I consider every base, including, being at home plate, to be in scoring position, because if you hit a homer, you score. So, but nonetheless, we get it. Important situations where a big hit would change the game. Giants had that today, and they were 6 for 8 with runners in quote scoring position. Whereas, I've got some stats that I was gonna pull up. So they were entering this game on the homestand, in which at that point they had won a couple games, but they were 2 for 33 with runners in quote scoring position. I have to say quote every time. I'm sorry. And then in last night's loss, they left 11 men on base, but 2 for 33. It's a 061 batting average. That's A, not sustainable. B, yeah, there's pressing involved. You're trying too hard and all that. But at the same time, we see in a game like today, as a perfect example, how it's not predictive of anything. It's just kind of okay, it's an important, people want to say, oh, this stat matters so much. It matters in the sense that if you do well in this category, you will score runs, but it doesn't matter in the sense that it's not predictive. Just because they were 2 for 33 had no predictive value whatsoever in the fact that today they go 6 for 8 in those situations. So that's kind of why I don't talk about it much, because it can just flip like that. But when it gets as bad as it was, I was definitely going to talk about 2 for 33. That's just abysmal. And you're going to lose a lot of games that way. But today they break through, and it was really the bottom of the lineup. Nick Ahmed and Tyler Fitzgerald, who hadn't started a game since I think March. Those two combined to go 6 for 6. So when your 8 and 9 hitters combine to go 6 for 6, usually something good is going to happen. Giants only struck out also 3 times in this game. So that continues to be like a good theme off. Like if we're looking for positives for the offense for the Giants to start the season, they're not striking out nearly as much as they were to start last season when they were like tops in the majors in terms of striking out the most. But they like so they're not right now, but they also didn't draw any walks today, but they did have 12 hits, so they weren't really needing to draw any walks because they were just getting hits left and right. And also, the Giants entered this game as the only team in the major leagues without a stolen base. And I specifically remember Farhan Zaidi talking about how last year they were dead last in the major leagues in stolen bases, and that was something that they felt like they needed to address. And to start the year, it's like, I mean, they weren't really trying much, and sometimes they like pitcher just simply throws over to first, and they were getting picked off. So it's like the base running just hasn't been very good either. But today they broke through in that way as well. So not only did they break through with runners in scoring position, but they also broke through with stolen bases. They had Tyler Fitzgerald had 2 of them. Matt Chapman had 1, and Austin Slater was caught. And so they attempted 4 steals and they stole 3 of them. And so, yeah, it was just a great game. The type like they needed this. You can't be getting swept at home by the Nationals and then going into an off day, right? You'd be in a bad way. It's early in the season, no matter what, but this was a big win. Would have been nice to win this series. They definitely had their chance in the middle game of the series, which again we'll get to. Giants are off tomorrow, and then they're going to head to Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay, their record's not going to wow you, but that's a tough and good team. And then you go to Miami to play the Marlins, who have been the worst team in baseball to start the season, but I would imagine they get back on track a little bit. And so neither of these teams is going to be, these are all major league teams. And so I just think this was a big win going into an off day and improved the Giants record to 5-8, which is a lot better than 4-9, which is what they were staring at if they were to lose this game. And also, padding the run differential a little bit as well doesn't hurt either, with the Giants winning by a final score of 7-1. I was honestly going to tweet something before the game like the Giants are due for like a 10-1 game, and they get a 7-1. I mean, Patrick Corbin is like a get well pitcher, but so far this year, and it seems like every year for at least the last couple, not in 2021, but pitchers who generally struggle or are brand new to the league, like they go out there and they deal or have their best outing of the year against the Giants. But they've been able to get to Patrick Corbin in the past, and they were able to get to him today. He goes 5 2/3, allows 11 hits, 7 earned runs. So the Giants bumped up his ERA to a nice, high, robust 8.44. On the flip side, Jordan Hicks, with 6 innings of 1-run baseball on a solo homer, lowered his season ERA to, yes, that's right, 1.00 is the season ERA for Jordan Hicks. And so I actually have to ask myself, that means his ERA went up. When I say he lowered his ERA, he raised his ERA to 1. It was 0.75 coming into the game. So we'll talk about the revelation that has been Jordan Hicks as a starting pitcher momentarily, and before we do. Actually, before we do. Today's episode is brought to you in part by PrizePicks. PrizePicks is America's #1 fantasy sports app with more than 3 million members. It's the easiest and most exciting way to get in on the action while you watch your favorite sports and players. You pick more or less on 2 player stats and watch the winnings roll in. Spring training is over and baseball season is officially underway. And as we know, it's a daily sport with opportunities every single day at PrizePicks. So don't miss your chance to add your favorite players from the diamond in your PrizePicks entries, just like I have been doing. Whether it's strikeouts, runs batted in, or first inning runs, take your pick of more or less and add them to your PrizePicks entry today. PrizePicks is available, yes, available to play in the state of California. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. All right, here we go. We are going to get into the revelation that is Jordan Hicks as a starting pitcher. He's been their best pitcher. He's been better than Logan Webb. He's been better than Kyle Harrison. Blake Snell's only thrown 3 innings. Jordan Hicks has given them 18 innings, and he's allowed 2 runs. And he's been exceptionally efficient in those 3 outings, 18 innings. So 6, 7, and 6 innings, respectively. And he could have gone more. They're just kind of easing him along to start. Like in all 3 of these outings, he could have kept pitching. Like today, he went 6 innings and he only threw, let me find it. He went 6 innings and he threw, I cannot find it, but I will find it for you. 79 pitches, 51 of which were strikes. He wasn't like super sharp, but 79 pitches in 6 innings. I mean, he easily could have gone out there for the 7th, but they had a big lead and they're like, look, you're a converted reliever right now. This is an opportunity to just kind of not overwork you right away. And we might need you to throw some innings in the month of October, hopefully, as well. So anyway, thanks again for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. Every dayers tomorrow. I think we're going to be doing some our first mailbag questions of the year. So look out on Twitter for the prompt this evening. And we'll be answering your questions tomorrow ahead of the Giants series in Tampa Bay. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Do you have to turn down the volume with all of that shouting? I know I do when I watch those channels. Make the switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I also want to remind you that you can catch every pitch of the Giants' hometown broadcast with the SiriusXM app. Just download the SXM app and search the word Giants. And I want to remind you that we have this postcast going on with Eric Engel. That is just a huge kind of important thing to note about this channel as a whole. So that if you're on YouTube, it's not there. It's on the Locked On Sports Bay Area YouTube channel, live right after every game, including weekends. And if you're on the regular podcast feed, basically listening anywhere besides YouTube, it's going to show up on the Locked On Giants feed. And so that is hosted by Eric Engel. I joined him the other night. Great dude. Really hope you're enjoying that. It's just extra content for you as a Giants fan. So just want to give a reminder about Postcast to you. And for instant reaction after every game, that's where you can go to vent about the Giants stranding the bases loaded with nobody out like they did last night, down by a couple runs. Man, was that frustrating. So we will get into that one later. But yeah, Jordan Hicks, what more can you say, really? I mean, a 1.00 ERA through his first 3 starts, averaging, well, maybe I have this. How is he averaging 18 innings if he went 6, 7? I mean, not averaging 18 innings, a total of 18 innings. I must be wrong. Maybe it was 5, 7, and 6. So I apologize. I think it was 5 the first outing, 7 the second outing, and then 6 today. So 18 innings and an ERA of 1. He did not strike out a lot of batters today, and so the strikeout rate comes down to like to a below average mark. So he struck out 13 batters in 66 batters faced out of 66 batters faced, which is a strikeout rate of 19.7%. And so that is a little bit below average, believe it or not. With the stuff that Jordan Hicks has, he's not striking batters out at even a league average rate through 3 starts. But, I mean, one of the big revelations here is that he's only walked 3 out of the 66 batters he's faced, which is a walk rate of 4.5%. So this is a guy in his career whose walk rate is 12.3%. And so one of the biggest things for me is that Jordan Hicks is throwing strikes. This is a guy, I mean, if you're not familiar with Jordan Hicks, if you're just seeing him kind of for the first time, or at least you weren't too familiar with his game, he was a guy who walks a lot of guys. And not this year so far. He's walking 1.5 batters per nine, only a minuscule 4.5% of batters face. That is like twice as low as the MLB average. And one of the things he's doing exceptionally well is keeping the ball on the ground. His ground ball rate after today, I mean, even entering, this is crazy. His ground ball rate entering today, 56.3%. His ground ball rate today, 56.3%. So safe to say, he's getting about 56.3% ground balls. And that means when the ball's hit, how often is it on the ground? 56% of the time. And the league average is closer to 40. And so he's just one of the more extreme ground ball pitchers in the game. And we've seen that play out. And we've seen him get out of certain situations with double play balls because he's got this turbo sinker that's just really hard to hit. And so would I expect him? Do I think he's going to win the Cy Young Award? Probably not. Do I think he's going to have an ERA close to 1 when all is said and done? No, I do not. But you couldn't really ask for a better start to the season and a better start to this quote unquote project that has very quickly become, I think a lot of people have certainly a lot more confidence in the Jordan Hicks as a starting pitcher idea than they did just 2 weeks ago. And he's done it in really after 2 starts, after 1 start, like each time he goes out there, it's just, he's going to have his rough games. There's no doubt about it. Every pitcher does. He hasn't had one yet. He's stranded 89% of his base runners. That's not going to last. That's too high. Like he's going to come down to a more normal level of stranding about 70-ish% of his base runners. So as opposed to 90. And so that's where the runs are going to come in. He's also, when you keep the ball on the ground so much, you naturally prevent homers at a rate that is better than average, and he's been able to do that too. He allowed his first homer of the season today. So 1 homer in 18 innings is obviously half a home run per 9, and league average is over 1 per 9. And so that is a statistic that takes a long time to stabilize, but nonetheless, as an extreme ground ball pitcher, he's always been like his career home runs per 9 is actually even lower than what it is this year when he's allowed 1 home run in 18 innings. His career rate of home run allowing is even slightly better than that. It's 0.46 home runs per 9. Basically the strikeout rate is a little bit down as a starter, and that is mostly due to today. Coming into today, his strikeout rate was about league average, and striking out only 2 in 6 innings today, it falls a little bit. But the walks is the biggest deal. Also, the velocity is really interesting, how he's sometimes sitting in like the lower 90s, and then he can also be in the upper 90s. But he's not throwing 103, 105 like we've seen at times as a reliever. So his, repertoire has been fascinating to watch. The splitter has been a good pitch. The sweeper has been a good pitch. And Bob Melvin was saying he throws 2 distinct breaking balls. I didn't know that. I thought it was just the sweeper, which is, as of like last year, been characterized as like a distinct pitch type versus a slider, a slurve, or a curve, or anything like that. It's more just straight horizontal. There's a little bit of downward movement, but more just think Sergio Romo's slider. That's like the ultimate sweeper, in my opinion. Like when you think of the shape of it, versus a slider has more downward bite. But anyway, I guess he's throwing a slider and a sweeper. Slider would be some more downward bite, and the velocity might be different as well. But anyway, Hicks has been phenomenal. There's just no other way to put it. And also, I don't think we recorded this, but like Javier Reyes of Locked On Padres and I were talking after we recorded our crossover, which was like a week ago or so, and he was like, man, that Jordan Hicks signing, we were really looking forward to the start on Friday, Cease versus Hicks. And after recording, he was like, man, I think that was just such a savvy signing by the Giants. But like, he does have a player option, right, after the year. And I was like, no, this is just a straight 4-year contract. So the Giants, also worth pointing out, Jordan Hicks is 27. So he was one of the younger free agents. And he's not one of these guys who has like an option after the year. It's a straight 4-year contract for a 27-year-old player. So, you know, it's been 3 starts. I don't want to get too ahead of myself here, but Jordan Hicks is here for the long haul. Part of the reason why they really want to make sure they take care of him. But yeah, I mean, 4 years. And if the starting thing weren't to work out, I said this from day one, he has been an elite kind of reliever. And so for the kind of money, 4 years, 44 million, that could be a reliever's role and salary. But for what he's doing, it's looking like a bargain and a half already. And so, again, he's not going to allow just 1 run per 9 for the season. So expect some games where he's off with his command or gives up, far more, 5-6 runs in an outing. So that's going to happen at some point. But so far, just he's stopped losing streaks. Like last time they were coming off 4 straight losses. Today, 2 losses to the Nationals at home. They've needed him, and he's come through every time. So coming up in just a minute, I'm very sorry to say we're going to rehash a little bit of the frustrations of last night and just the offense as a whole that prior to today was struggling oh so very mightily. So we'll get into especially that situation that the Giants found themselves in last night, bases loaded, no outs. It's like, hey, you want to get the Giants out? Just load the bases with nobody out and you're golden. That's what it feels like to be a Giants fan, it seems. It's crazy, but that's how it's been. So we'll get into that in just a minute. And before we do, today's episode is brought to you in part by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, which I personally have purchased from eBay Motors, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. All right, here we go. We are going to get into the frustration, the immense frustration of the previous loss. I think it was a game that the Giants had there for the taking. They were clearly pressing, right? Like trying to do too much, trying to, they know they're better than this. And then you find yourself in that situation and you just tense up, as opposed to kind of what we saw today, which was more of like once the floodgates start to open, the hits start falling and people relax a little bit. And it's much easier to play baseball and hit specifically under those circumstances. Thanks again for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. Everydayers, tomorrow, like I said, mailbag. First mailbag of the season. So look out on Twitter this evening for the prompt, and I look forward to getting to your questions. Hopefully they're not too negative as we are just, 2 weeks into the season here. Hasn't been the greatest start, but of course, Giants coming off a nice 7-1 win. Also, remember, you can catch every pitch of the Giants' hometown broadcast with Sirius SXM. Just download the SXM app and search the word Giants. And also remember, postcasts with Eric Engel after every single game, Locked On Sports Bay Area on YouTube. Go check it out right now. Open a new tab if you're watching live and subscribe. Every game, he's breaking it down. You could be there in the chat, just commenting and chatting about whatever it is, hopefully positive things and not, I don't want to know what it was like in there last night. I honestly don't want to know. But also, those shows do show up on the standard podcast feed for this show. So they're different. They should say postcast in capital letters at the front of every episode, different logo, but it's just additional content for you. Eric and I are part of the same team at this point and providing different kind of perspectives and timing and all that. So anyway, getting into the game last night, regrettably, Giants lost 5-3. So I mean, this is how it's felt at times. Like they just have not been able to get it done. Like even when it's felt like things might go their way. And Kyle Harrison came out of the gates blowing smoke and like struck out everybody he faced pretty much to start the game. Ends up going 6 innings, striking out 8. And my goodness, CJ Abrams, that home run that Abrams hit was ridiculous. It was left on left. Abrams is not a big guy, and he hit a Barry Bonds like home run, a no doubter into the arcade in right center field. I mean, we've got, you've got guys like Brandon Belt, just much bigger guys who have just smoked balls to that part of the park, and they don't go that far. And this is a much littler guy. So CJ Abrams like has really, I'm glad he's not on the Padres. They gave this guy up in the Juan Soto trade. The Padres did. And so thank you, Padres, who now don't have Soto and they don't have Abrams. So that's kind of the Padres' MO, and I'm really glad this guy's not on the Padres. That's what I'm going to take away from that swing of the bat. But Kyle Harrison, I mean, he's given up at least one homer in all of his starts, but otherwise, I mean, he didn't walk anybody, and that was one of the big questions for him. And just like Jordan Hicks with the splitter, kind of a newer pitch for him, or is it the sweeper that's the newer pitch for Hicks? Regardless, Harrison throwing the changeup and having that become a really good pitch is a big deal. But the story of this game was frustration. Like that left on left homer by Abrams, like came out of nowhere, and it came after there were 2 outs and nobody on, and the Giants had a lead, 1-0 lead, and it was boom immediately next inning, 2-run homer, and then again when the Giants scored 2 runs in the bottom of the 6th to tie the game, Nationals got a run right back in the top of the 7th to take the lead. And then in the 9th inning, with the Giants only down a run, they give up another run to go down by 2. And so it's just like, it's just losing baseball is what they were playing. But then it seemed like after they tied the game, like they were going to come back. And it also seemed certainly like once they loaded the bases with nobody out in the 9th inning with Conforto and Chapman coming up, like at the very least, it felt like, tying the game was a very real possibility, but they get nothing. They get nothing out of it because Michael Conforto, he had a rough 2 days. He went 0 for 5 in that game yesterday. So in that situation, he was up there, bases loaded, no outs. First pitch, strike called. Then he chases out of the zone, finds himself down 0-2, battles a little bit. I think there's a foul ball. I think there's a take for a ball. But then he just hits a little weak ground ball to the pitcher. They get the force out at home. Up comes Matt Chapman, who in that game went 1 for 5, not as well, but only 1 for 5. And he hits a game-ending double play ball. So the epitome of offensive frustration there. And this is the Nationals. It's not like you're facing, okay, it was the best closer in the game, that you were facing there. I mean, the Finnegan, I think is it Kyle Finnegan is the closer for the Nationals. I mean, I don't have his numbers pulled up, but anytime you load the bases with nobody out, you gotta do better than 0 runs, right? And it seems like that is just a situation that has plagued the Giants. So they left 11 on base in the game, and yeah, I mean, I was exceptionally frustrated as a fan. I've been, like I said, lifelong fan, and that was an exceptionally frustrating offensive performance. I mean, the Giants out-hit the Nationals 10-8, but and in that 9th inning to just kind of rally back, Jung-Hoo Lee single, Wilmer Flores single, Jorge Soler worked himself a walk, and then just to get what they got, which was nothing, was very frustrating. And that is what made this win today especially important, because you don't want to fall to 4-9 and get swept at home by the Nationals. So they can't have this be the story of the year again, where they're losing to inferior teams. And one series isn't going to define that. They have otherwise played good teams. I would say the Padres and the Dodgers are the only other teams they've played. The Rays are tough. Marlins are better than their record shows, but still maybe not a great team. And so this is a big series. Every game is big. Every game is big, but that one, whew, that was one of the more frustrating moments. I mean, it's the most frustrating inning, I suppose, offensively, especially of the season for sure for me. It just felt like they're handing you this opportunity and you aren't able to get anything out of it. So anyway, that is all the time we have for today. Thanks again for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. Everydayers tomorrow, mailbag. Look out on Twitter. I'm going to be sending out a prompt right after this episode goes up. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and now it's also available on Amazon Fire TV in the Fire TV Channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today now available on the free Fire TV Channels app. Once again, my name is Ben Kaspick. Check me out on Twitter. If you're watching live, it's right there, at Ben Kaspick, Kaspick. If you like this show, please consider rating it or leaving a review. It helps me out so much. So thank you in advance, and thank you so much to everyone who's done so already. I can't wait to be with you again tomorrow answering your questions. So thanks again for listening. You are now Locked On Giants.